All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Scott Zagurski. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Assurity Life Insurance. Broadcasting from my basement, like a lot of people out there right now. Um, Working from home has been kind of a fun, unique experience. Our webinar today, Social Media Tips and Tricks Your Kids Already Know, has hit me probably more often over the last couple months as I work from home, and I have two teenagers, and they are teaching me things every day. And I'm happy to share what I know about social media with you today in this webinar. Looking forward to getting some questions for you, and really excited to be presenting today with Macy Lenertz from our team. Macy is somebody who I've known for about 3 years, almost 4. She's a regional wholesaler on our individual sales side, and really brings a great perspective around social media, and is a huge advocate and great practitioner of social media herself. So I'm very proud to be able to present with her today, and she'll be taking things over here in a little while. But I want to get into our agenda with you today. What we're going to go through are, where we're seeing the opportunities on social media today, what people want and how to deliver those things to them. The two main focuses for most agents or agencies end up being around prospecting and recruiting. So we wanted to give you some tips you could use right now. And then hopefully at the end of this, you'll be able to see that we have some pretty great tools that will help you take action right now on your social media plans. So we'll get into a couple stats. I don't want to be completely stat-based here, but some just basics. 78% of sales pros using social media perform better than their peers. So people who are usually very active and very passionate about social media are seeing actual results. And I think that's one of the important things to really look at. Isn't just that you're on social media, that your presence looks good. I mean, those things are important. We'll get into that a bit. But the actual results that you get from social media can be real. Now, there's no lightning in a bottle with social media. Social media is kind of a very concerted effort, to, a slow grind to really make sure that you are incrementally gaining business, gaining prospects, gaining recruits on a regular basis. But the stats show that it can pay off. McKinsey & Company this year, in January, released a study, on how insurance can prepare for their next distribution model. And in that study, it showed that 30% of agents say lead generation is their biggest challenge. And, social media can help you nurture and find those prospects. But it's never a pushy sales pitch that works in social media. And we'll get into kind of best practices around this. If you're tuning into this today and you feel that you're extremely proficient in social media, love to exchange notes with you. This presentation is really, we'll get into some basics, but mostly we're trying to make sure that you have the fundamentals right. It is so important as we try to solve some of these business goals to make sure that we are positioned correctly from the get-go on our social media platforms and targeting the right things. And so when you start looking at your strategy, it is very important to make sure that you know where you currently are. Am I using social media to reach my audience, for these different goals? And then usually, one of the things that I see quite often is people make the mistake of trying to do too many things with their social media channels. Whether you're an agent or an agency, you're reaching out to too many different audiences. It can water down your message. And ultimately, you really want to figure out what the main goal is of your social media strategy. What do you want to get out of it? And then ultimately from there, you can tailor your content, your audiences you're looking for around that main goal. So I think that's so important to figure out up front is, like anything else, a good strategy, and then figuring out ultimately what your objective is for that strategy ends up being important for any strategic goal. And in social media, it becomes even more important because once you start watering down with messages that your audiences don't want to hear, you're going to alienate people, and that will further you from your goal. What is the best way to strengthen your social media presence? We're going to talk about that a little bit here going forward. Think about areas that you can improve upon, whether it's starting more conversations, posting more frequently, getting more reviews. What does your brand look like in social media? Those are points of emphasis we're going to go over. And then how are you actually measuring those goals? Are you keeping track of those things on a regular basis? And so, what we'd like to do now is a little participation. I'm feeling a little isolated in my basement today, so I figured we would get a poll going. And we'd love to know from you, in the audience, if you could answer our poll questions for us, and we'll go over those poll questions, the answers to those poll questions later. And I appreciate your participation. That really helps me kind of gauge, where you're at. And ultimately, as we have questions come up later, we'll be able to help you with those questions. So thanks ahead of time for contributing to that. So again, as we talk about goal setting, if you're looking for more prospects or top tier recruits, if you're looking just to better your reputation, let's face it, insurance is an avoidance category. Shouldn't say that being a marketing person, right? I'm supposed to be extremely positive on everything, but insurance is, one of those things that, the elephant in the room conversations and everything, you're really seeking out. I know, and seeing a lot of the names on this list today, that we have a lot of agents out there that, you are selling insurance. Insurance does not sell itself. And we're so lucky to have professionals like you out in the industry really looking at that. So you are the brand, the product is not. The product ends up being commoditized. So when you're looking at bettering your reputation, if that's one of your goals, there's a lot of things you can do down that path, which we'll get into here in just a sec. But actively measuring your results from a month-to-month basis is something I think people do a good job of starting out of the gates. And then ultimately I see what I would call a lot of social media graveyards out there. People kind of start, they'll do 2 or 3 months worth of posts. And then when people look for you and your name on Google or Facebook or LinkedIn and these main platforms, they see the infrequency of posting, and they also can then usually expect an infrequent response around there. So looking at ways that you're measuring that on a consistent basis, if you're going into this kind of, both feet into the pool, you have to make sure that you are committed and want to keep that up. The results that you want to focus on then really will allow you to find out what's working. And if you can keep those things always, that aren't working off your plate and focus on efforts that are working, you will start seeing that you're going to get closer to those goals. We talked just a moment ago about defining your brand. It's so important to make sure your message is consistent across all platforms. Quite often I see an extremely professional LinkedIn page from an agent. And, typically that is what is being sent out. Unfortunately, I had a friend who had an extremely professional LinkedIn page. You did a Google search for that person's name. It led you to Facebook and Google first, and then ultimately their Facebook post, the unfortunate one that I saw in the first 2 that came up, was them doing Jello shots at a family picnic. And nothing wrong with Jello shots. I'm sure they have their place for people, but ultimately their brand was definitely not strengthened, to gain trust, for financial results from people, by having that. So you are your brand. Along with that consistency, then you want to make sure that you are establishing your areas of expertise and your strength. These areas rarely get into specifics about products. You want to talk about relationships, talk about people, that you've helped. Demonstrate your value by giving special attention, to recent successes, and talk about your clients. Talk about awards you've won or that you're proud, your company is proud or you are proud as an agent in your success. But showing that success through examples of actual, people and how you've helped them in their life stages ends up being a key. It's not just the product push that if you have questions about life insurance now, we're in a COVID-19 situation where people are looking into that product a lot more and more. But you're more often than not going to have to show that you have useful informational content that will help educate them versus just push them on a product. And requesting satisfied clients actually leave reviews for you is something that for an agent can be good or bad. But I highly recommend that you have reviews and that you are soliciting those reviews from your clients. And both good and bad experiences, right? We've all been in a place where we'll see the 10 reviews and they're all perfect and we wonder which family member actually wrote those. It's okay to have a bad review in the mix, as long as you're attentive to that bad review and looking at how you could make that a better experience for the person in the future. People accept that, but if you leave those bad reviews unattended, that's when they really start to burn you. So when you're building that profile for yourself, add a good current professional headshot. I do see a lot of folks, and I'm getting up there in age, that I know my headshot from about 15 years ago definitely had a lot more hair on it. Probably looked a lot younger and more vibrant than I do today. But I think it's important that people know who you are, and having it be current and professional, having that done is extremely important, because when that person reaches out to meet you, and what could be a meeting by Zoom nowadays, ultimately they don't want to be surprised by what they're seeing. If you do have a logo associated with your company, make sure it is clear. The most overlooked section of these websites, if you're building a professional page or a business page, on Facebook or LinkedIn, is the About Us section. Making sure that you completely fill that out. What do you do? What are your areas of expertise? What past experiences, are valuable for the audiences that are coming to see you? And make sure those past experiences are all down the goal-oriented trail. I may be beating a drum here or on my soapbox, but I see a disconnect, a lot of times between the past experience on an About Us section for an agent or an agency versus what you are actually trying to do, right? And those two things being out of sync, it ends up being your online resume. And so you want to make sure that you connect the dots there. Make sure you include links to your website. If you have a blog or other social profile, include those as well. Or you can also include links to other valuable sources that you find online that ultimately you think would help. So now that you've built your profile and everything's looking good, you want to figure out, what you actually need to share. We'll get into some tools later on that I think really help you isolate these things. I've seen so often the turnkey agent programs that are going out and curating kind of the robot type posts. And I think those are better than not having sometimes a social media content strategy at all. They're kind of set it and forget it. But I think they're very transparent to people also when those go out there. So early on, you have to figure out what to post, and don't make it a chore. There's a few guidelines you can follow to curate your content and post what your audience actually wants to see. And we'll talk about tools that'll help you with that again here in just a minute. But you just need to make sure that that content is adding value. Advertisements do not add value. Sharing things like educational articles on tools and life events, that can help people learn, and they love to self-educate about their own needs. Point them to credible sources that ultimately strengthen your messages. Things like studies or stats are always helpful for people to understand. And as we talked about earlier, those testimonials about other people and how you've helped them in their lives really shine through on social media. So if you share an article, just don't add your own, just don't add a link, add your own thoughts and what you think about the article in the beginning when you do a post. Just write a sentence or two about what you think is good about this and why you think it's worth their time. Your own thoughts and analysis go a long way to establishing you as an expert in the field. So you have to make sure that you are taking that step. And vary where you get the content from. If every article you share is from the same site, carrier, your objectivity might be in question. So give your audience content from a wider range of sources to help bolster your credibility. So now you've built your profile, you're figuring out kind of what to post. Now, where should you be posting? What should you be on? If we talked about, tips our kids know, right now, on these logos, under opportunities, TikTok would definitely be one of them for my teenage audience. They are sending me things all the time, and it's so easy. There's so many social media sites out there that you can kind of get overwhelmed by having to post on all of them. But we feel for insurance sales or insurance recruiting that there are still really only 3 to really focus the majority of your time on. And so we highly encourage you, as you know, to be on Facebook. This is no secret sauce comment here. Facebook is the most used platform among US adults. It is trending older now. Like I said, my daughter is only on Facebook. She's 17. She's probably out there about once a week. But I can tell you that people who are buying insurance, my daughter is not, are definitely out on Facebook. And, since the whole COVID-19 pandemic happened, it's very interesting. I look at numbers in web traffic all the time. And I believe it was towards late February when they announced the first case in the US in COVID-19. In the next 30-day period, Facebook had a 25% increase in traffic, which 25% may not sound a lot, but when you are one of the largest, the top 5 web traffic sites in the United States, to get a 25% increase in a 30-day period is huge. Now, I don't expect that to be sustained over time, but Facebook for a lot of us has become something that is just ripe with a bunch of ads, a bunch of politics, a bunch of noise in the feed. But during COVID-19, it has been an outlet for people to communicate, for people to keep in touch, for people to be heard. And for you, it's a great place to connect for middle market prospects, to actually see the life events that are happening that ultimately you have products to serve them with, and then for you to build trust through quality content. If recruiting is more your game, LinkedIn ends up being the approach. 56% of job seekers use professional social networks to, look for a job, and LinkedIn being the top one there. Again, no surprise to anybody on this, but if you don't have a proper LinkedIn page, I highly suggest that you go out and get one. You want to build a strong network, and I'm kind of picky on LinkedIn. I only have people in my LinkedIn network that I've actually met or talked to. I think it's important in my network to actually have conversations. Right now, I am getting just droves and droves of kind of cold call LinkedIn in-mail messages, which I'm sure you are as well. People trying to sell their products and services. And while I will look at some of those, I will very rarely ever just accept those things out of the gate. You need to kind of work on getting relationships through other people If you build your network strongly enough, you can ask for a referral from somebody in your network over to the person you're targeting. And that always is much more well received and adopted, as far as getting you to your goal than just the cold call in mail. So look at the ways that you're out on LinkedIn and how that can help you. The one that ends up being kind of weird in insurance, and it's harder for some people than the others, is YouTube. Now, I mentioned the stats on Facebook during COVID-19. YouTube has seen, again, a very similar spike. They've got over a 20% increase in traffic, in that time frame, again, that that first case in COVID-19 was announced to now. It's the second largest search engine in the world. So YouTube, only is behind Google, who owns YouTube. And actually, if somebody wants to look for an answer to something, if they want to be educated, if they want to be entertained right now, odds are YouTube is part of their viewing pattern. It has received so much traffic here in the last 3 months that YouTube has more traffic than LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter combined right now. And that traffic is really starting to broaden its reach, not only on mobile, not only on desktop, but with more and more people streaming. And goodness knows, all the streaming that's gone in this house during this COVID situation. I'm kind of sick of the floor is lava on Netflix right now in my house, not to get too personal, but ultimately streaming and binge watching ends up being the norm. And YouTube is on these streaming devices, so people are actually watching this on their television now and their desktop and their mobile device. And what's very important, obviously, isn't that they're going in droves to look for content around life insurance or disability insurance, but it's very important to be found if they are. There are still tens of thousands of people that go out to YouTube on a monthly basis looking at those topics on insurance. And to actually be ranked and have content there gives you such a leg up. And ultimately making sure that you are cross-promoting that content elsewhere, that you're interacting with viewers when you put it out there. Just putting a YouTube video out there and putting the right title on it doesn't get you there. You really have to make sure you're asking questions as you're posting that content to your viewers. Your people who are very good at YouTube, your YouTubers, right, who are doing the stuff that my kids are seeing that goes viral, are always asking their viewers to comment in the post below. And the reason why that's so important is because ultimately, the more people that comment, the higher your video gets ranked on the topic it's engaged with, and the more easily you're found. So asking people questions and asking to interact on YouTube isn't something people are typically used to doing, but it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to getting your video seen, which is the goal. But you really need to dig into these audiences when you're thinking about content. Macy here coming up is going to go into some what we would call case studies on how you build these relationships, how you can really look at adding content that adds value. And I know that you all want to be seen and heard on these sites, and hopefully these motivations and the services you provide end up syncing up together, and hopefully we can help you connect the dots on those two things. But at this point, no better person that I know that can help you with building a relationship than Macy. So I'm going to pass things over to her.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate it. Scott is absolutely phenomenal at not only marketing, but understanding social media, and definitely have learned a lot from him. Scott, I appreciate your comments. As Scott mentioned, I do have some personal social media platforms outside of my job at Assurity. So I have a YouTube channel. I have Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, and all of these things have really led me to, over the last couple of years, come up with some solutions and some wins that I'm going to hopefully be able to share a little bit with you guys and help you guys out today. So as we're looking, though, at building relationships, we need to understand that that's what social media is all about. So whether we want to connect with potential clients, with brokers, with colleagues, sources for referrals, no matter who it is, social media is a great place to start. The best way that you can start to build relationships, it's really going to vary depending on which platforms you use and how you decide to use them. But I'm going to go through just a couple general guidelines and best practices for you to get you started. The first of which is to listen closely. You want to listen and you want to answer questions that you have expertise in. You want to make sure that you're responding promptly and accurately. And when you see someone ask a question that you can answer, do it. This is important to show your expertise. It's also important, though, to show your engagement and your interest in helping other people. So just remember, too, when you're responding to someone on social media, when you're answering a question, it's not only the person that you're responding to that will see it, but a multitude of other people have the opportunity to see it as well. So that's a good opportunity to help the person that's asking questions, but also others that you may not even intend on impacting with that answer. The next one is one I want to put asterisks, exclamation points, and stars around as well as circle. Interacting regularly with networks, with communities is so important. So as I said, I have my own social media outside of my position at Assurity, and the key to where I am today is interacting with my community and with other people's communities. So a few things you can do to start interacting would not only be to post yourself, to answer comments that people are leaving on your posts, but something you could think about doing is searching for other social media platforms, other influencers, other insurance advisors who have similar content to yours, who are similar in nature to you, and start interacting with their community. Like their posts, like the people's posts who like those posts, comment, like the comments, respond to comments. Again, interaction aside of just posting yourself is really key to getting you additional growth in your social media platforms. Number 3, we want to make sure that we're posting valuable content. And we want to make sure that this valuable content is actually helping your network. So put yourself in the shoes of your audience. What do you want to see and what do you maybe not like seeing when people are posting on these different platforms? And think about that before you publicly put out content. So don't just post to post. Post to help. Post to get known. Post to entertain. It might be an educational video. Maybe it's an update from your office that's going to make people laugh. Just remember that valuable content shouldn't just be an advertisement. People will come to you because you are the expert, because you are posting things that they like to see. Try not to just purely advertise. Number 4, maintaining connections that you already have. So while social media is really great for establishing new connections, you need to make sure that you're also focused on maintaining the relationships and connections that you already have. So a LinkedIn connection is not just the end goal. You're aiming to start and continue fruitful professional relationships. You never know how your current connections might be able to help you in the future. Again, new relationships are great. Make sure we're maintaining our current audience as well so that we can continue to grow and grow and grow. And then lastly for this slide, ask questions that will turn a post into a conversation. Different social platforms have algorithms, and these platforms obviously like their platforms to be used. So what they're doing is they're pulling and they're targeting and they're enhancing accounts who are using their platforms in a good way and using them often. So when you're asking a question in a post that you create, asking for feedback, asking for a discussion down below, post a heart if you like what you're seeing here, if you learned something today. If you're a new mom, post a baby picture below. Anything like that is going to continue that conversation. It's going to spark that algorithm and make you show up higher in these listings where these potential new customers and recruits are going to show up. So here is something that I do want you to hear me out on. You do not have to start from scratch to start a social media profile. Again, you do not have to start from scratch. Whether you think about it or not initially, you have a huge network already. These are going to consist of people like your friends, family, clients, colleagues, mentors, so on and so forth. So a great place to start, just like you might start going back to your current book of business, if you're looking at, selling a disability product that you haven't done before, go back to your current network and ask them to help by posting a review of you on LinkedIn or Facebook. Ask them to help you grow your social media platform. Hey sis, whenever I post a new post on Facebook or whenever I post a new video on YouTube, it really would help my channel and my business if you would go watch it, share it, like it, and comment below, or any combination of the following. A lot of times these people that are closest to you in your network already are going to be more than happy to help you, especially if they know it's going to help you in business. So don't be afraid to ask for some help there. And know that reciprocating is also a positive as well. So if you're asking your colleagues to help out, don't hesitate to help them out too. Without them having to ask, go and share and like their content as well. And then showing activity in existing relationships automatically will make you more authoritative. It's going to make you look more trustworthy. It's no surprise that when you go to one of these social media sites, before someone decides to follow you or watch your video on YouTube or whatever the case may be on whichever platform you're looking at, they're looking to see, how many other people have watched this? How many people have liked this post? Is it trustworthy enough for me to spend my time in viewing? And so one of the things that we can do in starting to use your network first is making sure we're making you look reliable. And then those numbers are going to grow and accumulate over time. But again, go back and start with that current network to help you out. So one of the top ways to improve your prospecting efforts on social media is through a practice called social listening. This is when you're going to watch your social media feed or search for areas of interaction and start conversations based off of those interactions. So know that social listening, it can be passive or it can be active. Passive would be you're simply keeping an eye on your feed. You're watching for what comes up. You're looking for opportunities in your own personal feed. Or active is going to be you're typing into the search bar for life triggers like selling house, new baby, new job, married, anything like that would, pull up a different platform, a different channel outside of your own, and you're actively seeking to start some conversations outside of that. When you do see an opportunity for a conversation, make sure you take it. So for instance, if you see someone looking for a realtor, you can comment the name of someone that you've used in the past in a positive review. Just know it's going to be far easier to start a conversation when you've already provided help and value to someone. So that should be your top priority. Also keep in mind that this is just an introduction. We're just starting a conversation, so don't go immediately for the sale. Nobody wants to be sold something. People want to be helped. If they know your value and they know you're trustworthy through starting these conversations and building that rapport, they know that you can help them, and eventually that will turn into a sale. But once you've started that conversation, you've made that warm handshake, keep an eye open for chances to follow up. So to keep up with that realtor example, let's say that the person has bought a home, you send them a message now congratulating them and saying, hey, congratulations on your new home. I know Sandy's a great realtor. I'm glad that worked out to work with her. I'd love to sit down with you and maybe buy you a cup of coffee and talk about more about your financial goals, see where we can help you out from here. So same idea applies on the other side as well, though. Just like we said, if someone's looking for a new physician or plumber, someone's looking for a recommendation on a dog park, or wherever you can provide real value and make a human interaction, a human conversation on social media, definitely take that opportunity. So just remember, providing value, in this case, a recommendation, is a really great way to develop relationships with people who may be in the future potential clients, recruits, or sources of referrals. People would rather message you on Facebook than call or email. I'm going to say that again. People would rather message you on Facebook today than call or email. So while Facebook and social media is an ideal place to start a conversation, take that opportunity, but make sure we're transitioning that conversation and taking it offline at a natural point in time a little bit later on. And then lastly, just remember that people know you're selling something. Be sure to look for opportunities to engage, genuinely focus on the person and the relationship before anything else. Social media can be a great place to search for possible recruits, just like we alluded to in the last slide, especially LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more of that professional social platform we all know about, but let's walk through just a quick simple search and how that can land you a qualified candidate that you may not have actually found otherwise. So what you want to do, you can kind of see on the slide here a picture of what LinkedIn, the app, looks like on your phone. And at that top where it says seeking opportunities, that's what we're going to call the search bar. So what you want to do is begin by typing into that search bar phrases that might indicate that someone is looking for a job. So think of, if you were looking for a job, what you might post in your profile and try those key phrases. So some examples to start you off would be seeking opportunities or recently graduated. That one, especially right now in the time of May through June or July, is going to be really hot. Once you've hit that search and you see all of these opportunities pop up, start by narrowing down that pool of possible recruits by geography, by experience, and by shared connections. And speaking of shared connections, they are an important factor in recruiting, especially if you both know the same person. It's going to be much easier for you to get that foot in the door and start a conversation. We all know the people who reach out to us and ask us automatically for, a meeting or to sell you something. And just kind of like what Scott alluded to earlier, is being picky about who he accepts on his LinkedIn profile. I bet if he saw that him and I had a common connection with someone who wants to be his connection on LinkedIn, he would be more apt to either ask me about that person or to accept that person's connection simply because we have a common connection. So knowing someone in common is going to help you. So that's one thing I would personally focus on. You can and you also should ask that shared connection about the possible recruit ahead of time. Do some vetting, make sure they sound like they might be a good fit for your business. We all know wasting time is not a good thing, so we want to make sure we do all the vetting out front if we can. And then once you've located some ideal candidates, you'll want to send them a message. So here's just an example, and you definitely want to tailor this to make sure it's personal and it's coming from you. But an example would be, hello, my name is Macy, and I see we have a shared connection. I'm just going to use the name John. John thought that you'd be a great candidate for a position that we have open at Assurity, and I was wondering if you had just a couple minutes, 5 to 10 minutes this week, talk a little bit more about the position and the potential opportunity. So really, guys, it's as easy as that. What it boils down to is to start, okay? Know that professional networking sites like LinkedIn are a great place to find professional quality hires, and it's an easy way to get an idea of who they are by looking at their profile, by looking at shared connections, their job history, so on and so forth. Connections are key. About 46%, candidates are 46% more likely to accept a message when they're connected to someone that you're connected to. And looking online is one of the best ways to find candidates who would otherwise never see your job listings. In fact, your talent pool can actually increase up to 10 times when you recruit through a network. Lastly, for this slide, guys, search can be a powerful tool, so I urge you to use it. Use it to find prospects. Use it to search for key phrases and think of life events when you're searching for key phrases. So new house, graduation, baby, wedding, anything like that is really going to help you find some opportunities. So let's go here, and I'm going to share the results that we found earlier. It looks like about 83% of participants voted in the question that we asked, do you use social media for prospecting, recruiting, or selling? And the results are pretty interesting. We saw 56% of you said yes. So for those of you who said yes, great. Kudos. I am so proud of you. Hopefully you're finding opportunities already. Make sure to go back to the basics that we're talking about here today and hone in on those and then build off of them. Now, 44% of you said no, and that's okay. Would it have been better if you had social media yesterday? Yes. However, it's not too late. Today is the perfect time to start. So if you do nothing else today, I would ask you to go start a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page and get yourself on the web. This is going to be key. All right, so moving on, these are going to be some really good tips for you in the next couple slides. So be sure to have a pen and paper handy, or if you're using electronic and going that route, have that ready. But we're going to go through some tips for having conversations. So I'm going to talk about asking for an introduction, how to do that, how to ask for a referral and when to ask for a referral, and then how to take that conversation offline. Let's start though with tips for having conversations. So guys, engagement is key. Just like I said earlier, on my social platforms, that's how I got to where I am today personally. Communicating, liking, replying, interacting with those communities is going to be just an invaluable tool that I really, really urge you to take advantage of. Another top tip for getting followers is to follow others yourself. So it's free, it's easy, it lets someone see you, so it does notify someone else when you decide to follow that person or subscribe to a channel or want to connect with them on LinkedIn. So it's an easy way to be seen. Make sure you're not missing out on any conversations as well. So check to see in your notifications if someone has mentioned you, if they're engaging your social profile on that platform. An easy way to do this is, if you're really interested in being the best that you can on social media, turn your notifications on your phone. It's going to notify you each time someone mentions you in a post or tags you in a picture, and that way you can respond easier and quicker. Which, going into the next slide, make sure you reply to any messages that you receive. And know, guys, again, the faster the better. With the algorithm set up with these social profiles, again, these platforms want to see that their community is interacting. They're using that channel, and if someone's using the channel more often than someone else, a lot of times that profile is going to be put above someone else's. So make sure that you're just using this in a timely manner, replying to messages, but make sure your messages are also accurate, proofread, and professional. And then lastly, if something that you post, and if you want to post something, that you were talking to a client or maybe a colleague earlier, mention or tag them in it. It's good to bring other people into the conversation, and think about it this way. You're talking to Joe from the office earlier about, the baseball games that you hope to see this summer, and maybe an article comes out stating that, hey, the Detroit, whatever they are, forgive me, I'm not a baseball fan, are going to be starting their season here soon, and we're going to have a full season. You might say, great, this is an opportunity where I can bring Joe and all of his followers and community into my social platform. So go and post something in your story. Post something on LinkedIn or Facebook and say, hey, Joe, remember that conversation? Check out this article. Let's go to a game. Who else is excited? Comment below. Now, what this is doing is engaging your social channel, but now that Joe is tagged in it, it's also engaging Joe's social channel. So by doing this, by tagging other people, including other people in your comments and in your posts, it's going to be a great way to almost double, sometimes triple, your audience. Moving on, though, to ask for an introduction. This is something that, we get a lot of questions on the sales team. How do I ask for referrals, or how do I ask for introductions? Doesn't it seem kind of awkward? If you don't know what you're doing, it may seem awkward the first time, but here's a few tips that I really believe in and think will help you. First, make sure you know whomever you're asking the introduction for fairly well. You don't just want to go to somebody off the street and say, hey, can you introduce me to your friend? Most of the time, that's going to be a big fat no. You want to make sure that whomever you're talking to and you're asking for that referral is someone who can vet for you, because ultimately, that's what it boils down to, is what you're asking them to do. Let this person that you're asking for an introduction know why you're looking to meet their connection and how you think you can help them. Again, nobody really wants to just be sold a product. People want to be helped. So if you explain to your friend, hey, Sandy, I see that your friend Mona just had a baby, and my market and insurance and financial wellness focuses on new moms and new families. And with the tools and experience that I have, I really think I've got some awesome opportunities to help her out. Do you think that you would be comfortable giving me an introduction? Something like that is going to be an easy shoe-in. Of course, your friend is going to say, absolutely. Let me give you her phone number. Let me have her call you today. Now, before you ask for an introduction, you also want to be sure that whomever you're looking to meet is going to be a good fit for your business. So going back to that example that I just used, your market is truly new families, new moms. Make sure that when you see a post on Facebook about someone retiring, if that's not your audience, don't just ask for an introduction to get a new client. You want to make sure that when you're putting someone else's name on the line to help you out, it's going to be something you're really, you're an expert in and you're going to be able to follow up on. Now that you have that introduction, let's say you've gone through the process and you've helped this client, and it's time to ask for a referral. Well, a lot of times you hear this phrase, you hear people telling you when you start in the insurance world, ask for referrals, and it's true, but there's a good way to do it and there's a not so good way to do it. The best time to ask for a referral is pretty simple. It's when you're talking to a satisfied client. If someone is happy with the service that you've provided them, they're happy with their experience with you, that's the best time to say, I'm so happy that you had this positive experience. If you know anyone else who's looking for an insurance or financial help, please don't hesitate to use my name and to have them reach out to me. You can also use relevant topics like life events, trends, shared interests. Those can be good segues into asking for referrals. So for an example to what I just said there, asking a lawyer client to refer other lawyers has a better chance of success. So using that like-to-like ratio for referrals is a great opportunity too. Know that referrals are a two-way street, ladies and gentlemen. You can't just be on the receiving end all the time. I hate to break it to you. This is actually a positive, though. It's a really nice opportunity to help other people. So if you're asking to be helped, make sure you're also helping. If you're working with a real estate agent and this person has helped you buy a house, and you're at a get-together and, maybe someone says, yeah, we're actually looking to buy our first home, that's a great opportunity to say, hey, great, I know someone who can help you. Let me get you in touch. And not only is going to help that person who you ask referrals for back if you ask your realtor for referrals, it's going to make that realtor want to give you referrals back as well. So it's a give and it's a take. Make sure you're doing it both ways. And lastly, guys, take the conversation offline, how and when to do that. You want to make sure that you're explaining to this prospect that would be a good fit. You want to set up a concrete time to talk over the phone or in person. So after you've had that natural interest shown in this conversation that you're having online, naturally transition to the point where, I think we've had some great points of topic. Sounds like this might be, a good opportunity. Can I buy you a cup of coffee next week? And can I give you a call next week? When are you available for a 10-minute conversation? I'd really like to talk to you a little bit more in depth about what we just discussed. Anything like that to make sure that sales are happening offline. Make sure you're transitioning at a natural point in time, though, too. This is important. This is something I personally believe in, and that is get directly to the point. Prospects know whether they're interested or whether they're not interested, so pursuing a sale that eventually is just not going to happen is a waste of both your time and theirs. With that being said, you don't want to move too quickly. You should take a step once you've built the rapport and know the prospect, but just in my own experience with my social platform, it's been a really awesome opportunity to help other men and women in their fitness journeys. But I've also gotten a lot of responses and messages where people are selling products through social media, and a lot of these messages come in either one of two ways. One is either right off the bat, do you want to buy my product? That doesn't sit with me too well. The other one is it's prolonged for days and even sometimes weeks. I've even had 2 opportunities that have tried to talk to me for over a month before they've pitched their product. And that just leaves a lot of time for me to become uninterested and even a little bit annoyed because I know up front what they're trying to do. I'm trying to be nice, but I know I don't want it. And so making sure you're taking the right time frame here to build a rapport, transition that sale to offline, getting to the point but not moving too quickly. And guys, you'll know how that feels. Be a natural human being in your conversations, and it's going to be just fine for you. So just know that timeline should be natural. Okay, so here's some real nitty-gritty opportunities, tips for you, and best practices. So as you just saw, there are a ton of ways to implement social media into your business. And no matter how you choose to go about it, there are some best practices. So number one, make it personal. Your social media should be to the point. People should not be confused when they go to your social media platform about what your topic is, what your area of expertise is, but it shouldn't all be about business. Just like we mentioned earlier, you're selling yourself here. Feel free to ask for recommendations for a plumber. Post a proud life moment. Maybe it's just graduation season and you had a child graduate, or maybe you're buying your first house, or whatever it is. People are going to connect to you more and be more willing to reach out to you if they see you as a human being. That's why you see a lot of people on social media who are trending, who are have a huge audience and a huge following, post about real life, a lot of times struggles or joys. Their personal life is something that allows people to connect to them. And then, it's just a great way to go about that. Next, you want to start a conversation. Again, it's great to post and reply, but if you want to invite dialogue, that's a great way to enhance your post as well. Make sure you're staying friendly, make sure you're staying professional. It's going to sound obvious, but posting a single time can leave a poor taste and throw off the rest of your social media efforts. Stay away from touchy subjects like politics, religion, and try to keep your cool online. Cross-promotion is key. If you post a YouTube video, make sure you transition that, copy that link to Facebook, and use your channels to cross-promote all of your channels. It's going to be a great way to, again, take audiences from one platform and promote it on another platform. Keep it short and sweet. Nobody wants to read a novel. Get to the point and make sure you're posting things that are really going to be valuable to your audience. And know that pictures are worth 1,000 words. That's a true statement. Images and videos are going to grab attention. They're more entertaining than just words. So use those wherever and whenever you can. Last for me, before I turn it back over to Scott, make sure that you're posting consistently. It's going to help with discovery. It's going to make you appear very active and interested, but you also don't want to flood your followers with posts. So here's a couple good rules of thumb. For Facebook, you'll want to post about 3 times a week, no more than 10. LinkedIn, about 2 to 5 posts a week. Post a video on YouTube about every other week, depending on your channel, for best results. And then the time of day that you post is actually also going to affect how many people see it. So a lot of times it's going to depend on the platform, but generally posts made toward the beginning or end of the workday will be more visible. Think of times when people are more available to see that. So thank you so much for attending. I'm going to transition this back over to Scott. He's got a couple of really valuable opportunities for you here before we round out. So Scott?
Thanks, Macy, and thanks for all the information you shared. I really do appreciate your insight. And real quickly, I just want to go over a couple more tools. I know we're way over time. I appreciate everybody's patience being with us. But there are 3 tools here that I think are really important for you to know if you don't already, that make content easy when you're trying to create and build those social media platforms for yourself. The first one is a website called answerthepublic.com. If you go to that website, you can put in any topic and it's going to show you the questions that people most likely search for on that topic. Just ultra important to get to know your audience. Those topics could be on products, they could be on life events, they could be on looking for a job, or how to become an insurance agent. Whatever it ends up being, you can type that information in there and find the questions they're looking for. Once you find those questions, you can go over to a website like alltop.com, They will give you content curation as far as what sites are actually offering good, valid content on those topics. So doing a search on those things and answer the public, bringing it over to a site like Alltop, then it gives you those links that you can actually comment on, put out on your social platforms to help you become a thought leader. And then if you're anything like me, I'm not the greatest graphic designer in the world. I need some help. Going to a site like Canva.com, which is free to use, you can get a login. It actually has a lot of social media templates. And the most important thing, they're the right size that need to be posted on these social media outlets. I don't know how many times I've seen posts that are kind of off skewed or big or small. They give you all the templates you need. So I highly encourage you to use sites like these to build that profile, get content out there quickly, and ultimately make it less of a chore and a little bit more insightful. We also are going to provide you some tools. We have provided kits for posts on disability, critical illness, and life insurance, also on recruiting and life event prospecting. If you go out to Assurity.com/social media, you'll see all these kits at the bottom of the page, along with their all new social media strategy guide that really goes over these topics we went over today, and that gets a lot more in depth down some of the paths on how to make social media and the best practices around it effective for helping you reach your goals. So again, I really appreciate the attendance today. There were very few questions that came up, but ultimately, it was great to be able to go over these things with you today. And I will open it up. If there are any questions, please post. And if not, we will see you next time. Thank you very much.